right, everyone, it is 10:44 Mountain Time, 6/6/2022. A very 6660 kind of day if you look at the numbers. This is Mud Flood, One-Eyed Jack and the Shells. We'll be right back. Text alerts just went out to almost 180 people, so let's give them a moment to shuffle in here. Make way. Alright, let's get started here. Alright, so let me go ahead and see who's arrived. Looks like we've had some bot killers. I appreciate it. Gubby. Tim and Vic 131 say 66. Trump's grandma Elizabeth Christ's death day was 6666. That's true. Donald Trump's grandmother Elizabeth Christ died on 6666. Very important day if you watch some of these Hollywood films that predict the Antichrist, the Omen. They depict this character, when in all likelihood it's Trump. Gubby here says it's hard to hear Jaron talk about mass shootings. Well, a lot of people are mainstream in their views of the mass shootings, and yeah, it's kind of difficult to hear people who see through deceptions above the Kármán line, but they think everything on the ground is real. Someone asks, what will happen to JL 26 if nothing happens to Seattle on 6/11? I think he's made it abundantly clear how he's arriving at these, what I don't even know if he called them predictions, prophecy. But he said before 2024. I happen to think now because the Kraken was released. It's in the Batman movie. It's tied into Stranger Things. There are too many connections here. The Top Gun thing seals it. And if you watched the video last night, we talked about the Top Gun movie, or you read my article, you know what I'm talking about. I think it's very relevant that we're in Gemini now. That movie just came out. The Elvis movie just came out. I think that Seattle's doomed, and we'll go into why here very soon. In all likelihood, you're going to be flooded. Clockwork 113 is here with the popcorn. Rocco Calzone, Zin Vallis, Polecat 78, Rich Flat, Jenna Lovecraft Reeves, The Spring Corpse. It's also, oh, by the way, we're approaching summer. The summer solstice will be in about a little under 3 weeks. We slide into Cancer, and that's a really key date on the occult calendar, and we'll talk about why. When they say Putin has cancer, I think it's a reference to something else. Possibly the day that they drop Satan 2 on the West Coast, or beneath it in the water. I mean, in some way, it looks like weather forecast for the Pacific Northwest, electromagnetic pulse, and tidal wave. Good evening, says Roxy W., joined by Ivar and Evil Coyote. On the screen, you see some artwork that was posted by, let me see who made that one, in our Discord server, Crazy Kanye. Crazy Kanye, who has a pretty awesome avatar, which appears to be a penguin with crossed wrenches behind it. Anyway, he created this infinite plane radio logo, corporate logo. I envisioned something like this in front of a repurposed office building or something that we're going to take over at some point and turn into our headquarters. And I do expect to have crossed wrenches over the front. Anyway, we'll continue here. Yes, Infinite Muse, it's a 666 today. Oh, Sam has joined us, and okay, looks like a lot of the people who've received the text alert or looked out their window and saw the image of a penguin projected onto the ionosphere have all arriving in droves. Penguins don't flock, they raft. And they may waddle on the ground, but they fly underwater. You have to see it. The tanks here are incredible. And yes, penguins are real. We had a slight foray into animal denialism the other day, and last month I just had to deal with that. We did have our meeting on the Mandela Effect documentary, which is going to happen. So if you didn't know, the Mandela Effect documentary is going to be released this July, so in about 6 weeks. And it is going to be a documentary. It's not a hit piece. It's not a debunking. It's a study on the topic. And I don't think you're going to find anyone who knows more about the topic than we do here at Infinite Plane Radio. We have actually been studying this thing and analyzing all the possible explanations for the phenomenon. The phenomenon is real, but is it supernatural? That is the question. And I will leave that up to viewers in the future to decide. So I sent out a friendly tweet to one of the leading promulgators of the Mandela effect, one of the admitted affected. I said here, the IPS is doing a documentary on the Mandela effect. It will be released in July. Not a debunk. We look forward to your review. Now, as you'd expect, someone who has been privy to what they believe to be supernatural insights, they've seen the handprints of God, and they know that reality is under our control. They have a very lofty and enlightened position. So, of course, when he heard this, Brian Stelvey reacted as you would expect, very saintly, someone who's transcended this mundane matrix. Let me go ahead and play his response to my friendly tweet.
But hey, IPS says he's coming out with a documentary in July, so I guess we should all be quaking in our boots. I'm sure that'll be quality, because that guy's a fucking idiot. Speaking of people that I don't have a problem saying their name, let's bring it up on the screen. He just tweeted this out, because he's always trying to troll. I haven't blocked him on Twitter, because I think it's funny. Sometimes he'll even retweet the show, so they can send their trolls over. Send your trolls over. We have a fucking 100 mods because of people like you. The Infinite Plane Society is doing a documentary on the Mandela effect. It will be released in July. Not a debunk. We look forward to your review. Listen, Jacob, go fuck yourself. How's that? You're a fucking clown. Your followers are clowns. They're all a bunch of hateful, spiteful people that you keep in your circle. And we don't give a fuck what you put out on the Mandela effect. The last time you said you debunked it, you put out a fucking book, and me and Nathan Sanders fucking laughed at it all night, calling it a pamphlet. It's a fucking joke, dude. It's like something you would find at a rest stop. Give me a break, man. Give me a break. You guys are an embarrassment. You want to come at the Mandela effect. Seriously.
Now, again, I'm not
people like this that
after the Mandela effect. I said this is a documentary on the phenomenon, and we're getting different perspectives. And one perspective is that from those who have been, I would say, immersed in an echo chamber, and they're now confronting what I would say to be a mass apostasy. A lot of people are seeing through it. The spell is breaking. The numbers aren't going up. And the arguments against each individual Mandela effect are basically strengthening with every examination. I recently debunked the idea that the Ford logo has a twist on the F because of the Mandela effect. Like somebody turned on CERN and the F switched up and turned into a swirly F. No, that little bit of decoration, that little flair was put there thoughtfully. It's an E. That's true. The F on the Ford emblem also has an E because up close it forms a TE, a reference to Thomas Edison. No way that's a Mandela effect. So anyway, my point is, we are doing a documentary. It's going to come out no matter what anybody says. And if they don't want to participate or be interviewed, that's fine. Most of the people who are part of this thing have, I think, made their statements pretty well public. So if we need to get any question answered, we'll just do our research. And a lot of our Mandela effect documentary is based on a lot of research and then some concurrent interviews, and you'll see. Zinvala says, is he ever not angry? Well, that's one of the things to talk about too. We often talk about religion and religiosity and fanaticism and why you have this dynamic where you would have an angry, judgy preacher with fire and brimstone. It serves a couple of purposes. There's a good cop, bad cop element to it. And that's a big part of what's been missing here. The mainstream media has been, quote, debunking it forever, but they call it the misinformation effect. But what they get wrong is that this thing isn't created organically. This is the result of an interrogator and interrogatee dynamic. The person being interrogated, the Mandela affected, is presented with a false binary, with a bit of suggestion from a tainted witness, someone who already believes. I mean, we have this thing pretty well understood, but I think it's important to let the other side, those who believe that the reality is changing, explain it in their own words. And so we're going to try our best to get believers to make their best case. And those watching the documentary will be able to decide after whether they are on the side of the Mandela effect explanation or the side that it's got a more mundane explanation. So we shall see. We chose July 18th because that is Nelson Mandela's birthday. Evil Coyote says, probably taking too many steroids. Jenna Lovecraft Reese says, no more Mr. Nice Brian. I think you misspelled Brian. Alright, let's continue here. Let's just move on. I just wanted to let you all know that we're working on a documentary. If you want to take part, by all means, doors are open. It's not a circle of people I keep around me. There's 504 people in the think tank. A number of them are MSM plants. There's feds, there's spies, friendlies, and a bunch of curious people, but it is by no means a cult. I really doubt that 504 people agree with me on everything. By stark contrast, nobody in his circle dares disagree with him. And it's that good cop, bad cop dynamic. They don't want to get the treatment that I'm getting. They don't want that angry chipmunky voice to excoriate them in front of thousands and thousands of subs. So, no. I am what you would call, I'm not even an apostate, because I was never a believer. I guess I'm just an infidel. Alright, today is 666, and on this day, and this is from Donnie Darkened, Bill Gates turns 66 and 66 years and 222 months. Does that count? Does that count? You know, there's a point here where you could almost make the argument that it doesn't matter if it's that far off, but we'll see. Yesterday we were talking about some more connections between Stranger Things and the recent shootings. Very strong one here. Tops shooting in Buffalo, and in Stranger Things, which opened up with a warning that this might remind you about the recent school shooting. In this one, the season opens up with a bunch of dead kids. The person who kills them all is playing with tops. So tops is a huge part of the opening scene. Shooting happens in tops. Very strong point there. Not the only one. There's quite a few other things that have come up. Curious resemblances between main characters in Stranger Things and the recent shooters. Is that the Texas school shooter? No, that's the guy from Stranger Things. What about this one? Is this the Buffalo shooter? No, actually, that's not the 4chaner Buffalo shooter. That's another computer nerd from Stranger Things, but they kind of look alike. And then this Stranger Things Season 4 new pictures show the gang stocking up on guns as they prepare for war. So here you have the crew from Stranger Things curiously arming up in front of a place called Warzone. Quite a lot here. Very interesting. A lot of things here. Again, cast members we're seeing loading up ammunition and guns. A store opened up in Hawkins. What is the deal? Well, the deal is that the show has a subtext. Dead kids, something's killing the kids, the adults don't do anything about it, the police can't understand it, everyone has PTSD. The storyline is basically this. The Second Amendment is the monster that nobody wants to talk about. The mass shooter generation, too young to vote away the thing that's killing them. They have to gang up, make some noise, and go out and hunt the thing down. In the movie, there's a David Hogg-esque character, similar situation to Parkland, and then I find out that, wow, not only am I seeing the Parkland story being told in the subtext of this Stranger Things, with the monster being a metaphor for the Second Amendment, but now, March for Our Lives, the actual protesters, are organizing a nationwide protest on 6/11, which is Kraken Day, Seattle Day. And again, 6/11, that date we were speaking about earlier, it also seems to be, insinuated into this, well, the Kraken thing with the Batman movie. It's actually 11.6 in the movie. But in Stranger Things, there's this thing. It's not a kraken, although it has a lot of tentacles, this monster. But there is a separate monster from the main one, and it's in Russia. Now, again, the Russians are the bad guys. There's a lot of Russians in this movie, which kind of matches the news, concurrent programming, and it's the Russians that release the Demogorgon on the American in the prison. He has to fight it off with a spear. The Demogorgon, kraken like thing, the Russians release it. Very, very curious. Joined by Pippi Langstruff, so she says happy birthday to Fepe, obviously. He was born on 6/2. He's 5. 33 in penguin years. Tomanoid2 says Monster was a burned man. Interesting point. Yeah, the monster was I mean, I don't want to give spoilers out, but you remember the scene when he burns, when he falls? There's sort of another storyline here. It's the first one. He was the first created one, like Lucifer, the right hand man who rebels against the creator and falls. And you had a pretty strong fall from grace. He falls. It looked like the scene out of maybe Paradise Lost. Lucifer fallen. Anyway, he falls down into the underworld and he becomes this Saturnian type character. Very, very consistent with a number of other little storylines in this thing. If you haven't seen Stranger Things, I don't want to give you too many spoilers about this, but I'm pointing out the concurrent programming. So I wrote out a far more thorough article to the Top Gun movie with everything with the Top Gun movie that we were talking about. A few things I just want to point out here though before we go into that, and I found a few more clues in it. If you didn't know, I went out yesterday and I watched Top Gun 2. I had a notebook in hand, and everything about it was pretty much consistently uh, telling the same story. A lot of Phoenix stuff, a lot of Christ resurrection stuff, as you'll see, but it ties into the bigger narrative. And there's another important point here, this merging of Tom Cruise, not just Maverick, but Tom Cruise, with Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space. Very, very interesting thing that they've done here. Okay, so we've been talking about the significance of 2, and so this is going to pop up again. As in, this year, Pluto returns, second coming of Pluto. At Dawn Day 2, they kind of commemorated that. Right now, it's Satan 2 is the name of the rocket they're pointing at us. Top Gun 2. Sonic 2 just came out. Apparently, Sonic 2 has something with a space needle and a flood. But anyway, I think in Discord we brought this up too. Terminator 2, where the Terminator goes after John Connor. Again, John Connor, JC, Jesus Christ, Sun God, Terminator's the Terminator line where the sun sets. The sun dies at sunset, the Terminator line. All very significant here. The point I'm making here is the 2. See, T2. Second coming is being encoded into this stuff. So, before they built the One World Trade Tower, the one that opened up on 11/3, 13 years after the 9/11 event, before they decided on that one, which looks like a giant Vax needle, probably intentionally, there were some other designs that were being floated around that were being proposed. One of them was the Twin Towers 2. The Twin Towers 2, or the Trump Twin Towers, or the World Trade Center Phoenix. So again, listen to this. The complex, and this is what's so fascinating, is that there are people who think that Donald Trump is some kind of savior. Well, look how close he was to ground zero. The complex was designed by American architect Herbert Belton, American engineer Kenneth Gardner, and sponsored by Donald Trump. I'm making the connection to Phoenix. The opening date, 113. Challenger exploding, 1 minute 13 seconds. Again, this is the new tower that replaced the twin towers that burned after 33 years. They were built in 68, burned down in 2001. Twin towers. And this all will tie in because the Top Gun movie, they were spaced 33 years apart. And they're all about the Phoenix, as you'll see. So I'm just going through some of the preliminary symbolism before we go into a bit of a deeper dive. And you'll see I had my own interpretation and I did some searching and I found that yep, others have found many of the things that I pointed out. The Yuri Gagarin connection, for example, I'm not reaching on it, it's there. And that solidifies the Kubrick connection. And I also believe I have an explanation for why David Bowie was on the soundtrack and why the song appeared when it did. Okay, so does Maverick sacrifice himself to save Rooster? Set 33 years after the original movie, Maverick sees Captain Pete Maverick. Anyway, this again, does he sacrifice himself? He does. Now he survives. Shouldn't be much of a spoiler, but the fact is the sacrificing is huge, as you'll see. And if you didn't know, and I'll reiterate this in the blog post, but rooster is another symbol associated with Christ and also the Son. Again, another thing worth pointing out, Tom Cruise's 33 problem. He's split with all three of his wives. And I have to double check this, but I'm pretty sure the wives were all spaced 11 years apart. I want to go over the meaning of the obelisk, and I have a pretty decent article about it and why it matters. Okay, so here's the actual article. It's Top Gun 2, Tom Cruise, Second Coming, Sun God Symbolism, and the next 9/11. Because that's the bigger picture. It's not merely just another installment in a series of movies, but this is actually telegraphing something huge. Just like Kubrick's movies, like The Shining telegraphed not only 9/11, but it kind of revealed his involvement in Apollo 11. Well, Rocco says, spoil it, Tim. I'm not watching that crap. Yeah, if you don't want to watch this crap or finance it or however you want to look at it, you can just support Infinite Plane Radio. And a lot of that, I mean, where do you think I got the money to go watch a Tom Cruise movie? From the channel, because this is part of our research. People pitch in, it goes into research. It's all opposition research. Deep dives like this are absolutely necessary to know what's being told, especially because they're doing so many psyops, back to back. There's barely any time between them. So I was glad that I went and saw the Batman movie when I did, because otherwise I would not have picked up on half the things. So let's see here. Going through comments, Lean Dion says they make space weapons in there. I guess we're going to blow up the Ruskies to smithereens. Said right after an Emerald City reference from Stranger Things. Emerald City again is Seattle. Speaking of which, I have a link to a video. I'll post it later. Look at the video World War III. It's called Let's Start World War III by World Order. It's a music video shot in Seattle that seems to suggest Trump being shot, falling back in the snow. And the video was released on 3/11/2018. Very significant. 2 years before the pandemic ground zero in the Emerald City. Kelimenta says, what's the significance of late January? New Year's is serious at its highest, but why late January for the Challenger? Good question. Challenger, then of course, you had, I think it was Apollo 1 was like almost the same. Yeah, actually 19 years after Apollo 1. 19 years in a day, you had the Challenger. That was also the same week as Kobe Bryant's crash. It was the week, as I mentioned, that the Falcon was sacrificed in Dragon Fire. A number of incidents around that week. It's a week of tragedies for NASA. I'm not quite sure 100%, but it is predictable. And we've made predictions accurately based on that. Pippi says, funny thing happened on the way. That is such a misinformation line. Funny thing happened on the way to the moon. Bart Sabro. That's a guardrail fake conspiracy. It's an explanation that misleads you. They weren't on the way to the moon. They weren't like on the way to the moon, halfway there, and took a picture. The whole thing was just staged. But you know how far away they were when they showed us the image of the Earth? I believe they were 237 kilometers. When they showed us the face of the Earth. Let me see if I can find this here. Now, room 237, reference in The Shining, some believe it's a reference to the moon, which at the time was believed to be 237,000 miles away, which may not be accurate. But there was a photo of the Earth that they took from their craft at 237,000 kilometers. So that number makes an appearance twice in reference to the moon fakery. Okay, so we're going through the Top Gun 2. Tom Cruise, Second Coming, Sun God symbolism, and the next 9/11. So the significance of Top Gun 2 coming out at this time, again, Pluto 2. Pluto returned on 2/22 to the place where it was on July 4th, 1776. 1776 is a very, very important year. Illuminati was founded May 1st, 1776. It's a second coming number, another 2 for you, because 888 times 2 is 1776. And in Christian numerology, 888 equals Christ. The One World Trade Tower I mentioned, the one that opened on 113, 13 years after the 33-year-old Twin Towers burned, is 1,776 feet high. 1776. Again, it was going to be called Twin Towers 2 or World Trade Center Phoenix. So if you didn't get it, twin guns. That's what it means. Top Gun 2, twin guns, like twin towers. There's a direct analogy here. Top Gun comes out, or rather Top Gun 2, as we enter Gemini. Now, some of the numbers are intriguing here because Tom Cruise had completed 42 movies by the time this one had been done. So 33 years apart, not just the starting point of this movie. They started producing it. The trailer came out 33 years after the first one. But chronologically, they're actually separated by 33. So that's all intentional. And then having done 42 movies between. Again, we enter Gemini. I think we're close to something big. The Challenger blew up at 1 minute 13 seconds. There's another 113 associated with a fiery death. When you think Phoenix, fiery death. Challenger blowing up, fiery death. Again, the Challenger blew up 19 years and a day or so after the Apollo 1. Now, 1 minute 13 seconds is 73 seconds. So Tom Cruise is a challenger. I mentioned that he challenged the Russians to a race to make the first movie in space, and he lost. Their movie was called The Challenge. He lost the challenge. He was the challenger. Tom Cruise was born July 3rd. 7-3. So the 7-3 Challenger Phoenix number, this is kind of encoded in his birth date. Right before July 4th, which again has some connection to the second coming of Pluto. Now we have Satan 2 being waved around. Again, the number 2, very conspicuous. New Mission Impossible trailer, Dead Reckoning, was on before the movie. Dead Reckoning Part 1. So presumably, he's going to end it on Dead Reckoning Part 2 or Dead Reckoning 2. Top Gun 2, again, started 33 years after the first, takes place chronologically 33 after. Here's a headline from Culture. After 33 years, we finally have a trailer for the Maverick, Top Gun sequel for Maverick. Set 33 years after the original. Now here's where we get into the symbolism. And it's all in the names. The character Rooster's father died in the previous movie. So it's a returning character. Rooster, in Christian tradition, is the symbol of Christ, like the lamb or the eagle, emphasizing the solar symbolism, light and resurrection. As Christ, the rooster announces the light that follows the night. One storyline here is Maverick, or Pete. Again, Peter, very significant. He has this relationship in the first movie with the son, or rather the father of Rooster. So now he's got a relationship with the son of Rooster. So son, S-O-N, equals S-U-N in the context of the symbolism in this movie. The sun represents a second coming, a second chance. The rooster, the character sings great balls of fire, reminiscent of his father. And they have a flashback superimposing them, showing the son in the place of the father. All very symbolic, of course, great balls of fire. Cruz's name in this movie, Peter Petra, is the rock of Christianity. The rock upon which Jesus would build his church would refer to Peter, since Jesus changed Peter's name to Petros, meaning rock, the foundation of the church. The name Thomas means twin, Cruz means cross. So on the screen here, you're looking at the patriarchal cross. The twin cross symbol means resurrection. The first crossbar is death, and the second, resurrection. Top Gun 2 is the second crossbar. Maverick risks his life, seemingly dying, to save Rooster. Shortly after, Rooster seemingly dies, saving Maverick. They both parachute down, hanging from the sky. A lot of self-sacrifice, a lot of altruism. It's a big part of Maverick. His character is sacrificing himself for the new trainees. Early in the training, and if you just watch the movie, there's just obvious things here. Flying into the sun to blind the guy behind him. Now the character Hangman, here's another significant name, and I brought this up yesterday. If you look at Tom Cruise in his various movies, he's always hanging from planes, hanging from buildings, hanging from cliffs. Very significant here. But there's a character in the movie called Hangman, who his only line is, "I'm good." He just tells everybody, "I'm good." It's kind of smug, very annoying. But like, what does this mean? Towards the end of the movie, he saves Rooster and Maverick by flying out of the flames of a destroyed plane, and he says, "This is your savior speaking." So, Phoenix from the flames, savior, says he's good, obviously reference to God. Top Gun School opened on 3/3. You have a character named Phoenix, obvious reference there. It took 33 rounds to take out the Darth Vader looking person. Now, they made it really clear here that Tom Cruise is doing this one last ride for everybody else. Reoccurring theme. The meaning of 33 in this context. 33 vertebrae in the spine, the glowing crown or halo. The halo, the sun behind the Christ or the various saints, represents illuminated consciousness. The sun being a symbol of illumination. It returns after its destruction. When you see the sunset, you're watching the death of the sun, the Terminator killing it. The Terminator line where the day meets night, again, Terminator 2, John Connor, JC, pursued by the Terminator. Very significant. A Top Gun flight helmet, Maverick F-14. Tom Cruise wears the HGU-33. In the movie, he's ascending to Mach 10. The camera pauses at 7.3 on the dashboard, where you can see he's at Mach 7.3. That's when he goes off the radar because of the Earth's curvature or ballage, which they joke about. Now again, they made him look like Yuri Gagarin. Very important because that was the first man in space. And when he lands, he walks to a diner and he asks where he is, and a kid says Earth, which is just like the anecdote of Yuri Gagarin arriving from space and landing in some lady's field. So this Tom Cruise Yuri Gagarin connection is significant for a few reasons. One, the first man in space very likely is the first man on the moon, Neil Armstrong, which brings Stanley Kubrick into the picture. His Apollo 11 involvement, why wouldn't he be involved with the earlier space missions? Plus, he worked with Tom Cruise on Eyes Wide Shut. So Kubrick would talk about someone who's been involved in all of these major worldview shaping transformative psyops of the last century. So Tom Cruise going to the space station for Dead Reckoning 2, very significant. A few other observations. There were many uses of the middle finger throughout the film. The characters were constantly giving each other the finger. Now, if you remember from the first movie, there's a scene where he hangs upside down and he gives the finger. Now, there is a deeper meaning here. There's a reason why they do this, and it makes sense in context of everything else we've been talking about. So one, And we could probably talk about the symbolism of the meaning of the obelisk before we go into this much further. A few things here. Let's just start with this. So a casual walk around any graveyard will show you these things. It's a sun symbol though. So if you haven't seen one, the obelisk, and this is from Grand Design Exposed. Okay, the Encyclopedia 1964 shows how the obelisk was related to sun worship. It explains that the monument represents the sun in the ancient Egyptian religion, being sun worshippers. The word obelisk actually means shaft of bell. Bell, another way of writing Baal, the Babylonian and Egyptian sun god. By the way, there was a lot of bell ringing in the movie. So here we go. Here's an interesting fact about the temples. It says here, the temples were oriented so that the shrine would face the same direction, and so that on one morning in the year, and one morning alone, in a temple oriented to the rising place of the sun at midsummer day, the sun's rays would smite down through the gloom of the temple, down the long alley of the temple pillars to light the altar. So this was the sun's presence on the altar, and it becomes impregnated. This is typical. The meaning of the obelisk, of course, is the earth god, who is killed every day by the night, the Terminator. He dies. His body parts are scattered throughout the night. His wife, Isis, puts him back together. They can't find his members, so what do? They put an obelisk at his gravesite. He's the god of the underworld, and he rules the place where the sun goes at night, and this symbol represents his resurrection, that he will be back, which the next morning the sun comes back. So the idea is that the goddess represents the night sky, even represented by the dome, which is something they talk about here. It says here, the stone monument obelisk stands erect before a dome. The dome is the goddess, or it's the night sky. The idea is that at night, there's this nightly conjugal, and the next morning they have the new sun god born. Now this is just the basic fertility rite behind Mystery Babylon, behind all the various, I'd just say Saturnian religions, Abrahamic faiths. It's all kind of the same stuff. It's all the same symbolism. But it's been brought back to us in the form of SpaceX and NASA. Space being heaven, the rocket, the new obelisk, and it's quite literally space sex when you get down to it. Anyway, this article, Lucifer's Sun Worship Exposed, Rome, Implacable Enemy of God's Truth, the Phallic Obelisk and Dome. Interesting article, but I'm bringing this up because the connection between the sun and this obelisk is key here. So the middle finger has a deeper meaning if you take FU literally. This is from Desmond Morris, anthropologist. It's one of the most ancient insult gestures known. The middle finger, it's a phallic gesture. So the phoenix, the burning man, the Christ, the obelisk, the burning obelisk rocket, these are all tied to the male deity, Osiris or Baal, Bel. They're all tied together. So here you have, in the scene, he waves his middle finger and he says, "Watch the birdie." Well, the birdie is an obvious allusion to another name for a rooster, the cockerel, but the shortened form. So another reference to the bird, and also a member, as everything else here, tied to the solar symbol. Phoenix bird, rooster. Again, rooster and phoenix, two names of two of the characters in this movie. So again, this affirms the movie about the Top Gun, its top obelisk. I mean, this is about resurrection. It's about the meaning of this sun god, this deity, is the sacrificing of one's life. The sun gives its life. It dies every day. It gives us life so that we can live. That's the personification, that's the story. So this movie is about altruism, self-sacrifice. So each day it heroically fights, and the name Horus is another sun god name, connects to hero. Think Luke Skywalker. Luke is the light, walks across the sky. Darth Vader means dark father, another reference to Saturn or the underworld form. And this constant interplay between the two is what we're seeing represented in the battle between light and dark. So each day the sun, S-O-N or S-U-N, it's this idea of the sun is a personification of the S-U-N. It comes back, heroically saves us from the night or from evil, from the Terminator. So if you note in the movie, the bad guys wore black helmets with opaque visors, like Darth Vader. And the Darth Vader-like pilot required exactly 33 rounds to be taken down. And again, you have the character Hangman, again hanging in the sky like the sun, the savior. He called himself he said, "This is your savior speaking." Okay, so now I want to get a little deeper into the bigger meaning outside of the film, and it has to do with Tom Cruise and his historical role that he's playing on the world stage. Again, it's all encoded with this second coming theme. That's what the name has encoded in it. Thomas Cruise, Twin Cross. And this is a role that he's been playing in several different movies. Vanilla Sky is one of the most obvious. Okay, let me catch up on your comments before we go too much further. Rusty says, I remember Tim Truth playing that World War III song investigating the 11-3 thing a couple years back. Yes, and this is a continuation of the same. Maxwell says, Bart Sibrel believes everything about space and NASA, just not the Apollo. Yeah, he's a limited hangout operative. He got paid to get punched in the face, in my opinion. He's also Mendoozled, I've been told. Wayne Dion says, Sibrel is Mendoozled on the tinfoil hat, meaning he's affected by the Mandela effect. Really makes me question his judgment. Alright, joined by Restless Bear, Frank Murr. I'm just catching up. Please kill the bots. Again, we don't know if those are disgruntled employees, YouTube employees or not. Tom Minoy says, Top Gun 2, running time 131. I saw that. Alright, and they made a joke in the movie about the curve of the Earth. Alright, joined by We. Thanks for joining us. Again, I'm just going through your comments before we proceed here. Lean Dion says Taco Bell is the only remaining restaurant. Yeah, that would be in Demolition Man. Now, Demolition Man, two primary characters, light and dark, Phoenix and Spartacus. And think of the name Phoenix, that's very significant. It's a Batman Joker-like dynamic between the super cop, super criminal. The movie was really predicting 2020. Again, a year that had a lot to do with the Joker, Joaquin Phoenix. A movie, again, Demolition Man predicted the run that we had on TP, predicted social distancing, and of course, a future where the only restaurant remaining would be Taco Bell. Pippi says, bringing light to dark places. Yep. Benton G asks if we're live. Another one of those weird synchronicities. We're not live, this is a recording. You showed up right on time. Okay, so let's continue here. The role of Tom Cruise, his historical role. He's been typecast as a hero, a sacrificial savior. Then you throw in the Scientology connection, which ties in to the space program's inception. And this is where things get more interesting. So we've been presented with the savior archetype as the world is being prepared for some kind of world savior in the near future. And we've been talking about the Starman, the man who fell to earth, in this savior prophecy thing that was also indicated with Donde 2. It's been indicated with the QAnon sense. All this QAnon sense, the QE stuff. I heard a good word today, QE. The QE stuff about the JFK Jr. coming back. There's a lot out there on the world stage preparing us for some kind of a savior. It's in all the movies. The Man Who Fell to Earth, which is a Bowie character. So considering Tom Cruise in the context of Stanley Kubrick's metascripted messaging, here's what I'm seeing. I'm inclined to think that his loss in the space race against Russia, he lost for America. He lost on behalf of America to a movie called The Challenge. I think that is foreshadowing. His upcoming birthday on 7/3 is the day before Independence Day, and this year Pluto had its second coming as it arrived to the position that it was on back in July of 1776. So I'm thinking Independence Day is going to be very, very interesting. This Independence Day also, I think this is the movie Independence Day, should also be brought up here because that's a movie that had significant 9/11 predictive programming, foreshadowing. The director, and I bring it up, it's even more relevant because the director recently put out a movie called Moonfall, Roland Emmerich. And Moonfall, again, about a 33-year-old savior, a scientist who saves the world from the moon falling. Interesting topic. Again, there's even a mission. I think it's A119, some program. They were planning to nuke the moon to impress the Russians. Before they talked about landing on the moon to make a statement to win the space race, there was this project A119, 9/11 backwards, or Apollo 11-9, which was, yeah, it was intended to nuke the moon. But anyway, that was brought up in the movie Moonfall, which just came out. More predictive programming. And as I said, 9/11 had predictive programming in Independence Day, buildings falling. Moonfall has imagery suggesting stuff from the sky falling, satellites falling, space station in all likelihood. So I'm bringing this up because we're coming up on Independence Day and there's the Kraken to consider. Now, the Kraken was released on 2/2/2022 because Hades is Pluto and Hades releases the Kraken. Now, let me bring this up really quick. ISS cracks. Last summer, NASA astronaut Bill Shepard gave Congress details about cracks on the space station. About half a dozen cracks appeared on Russia's Zarya module. So the ISS had cracks in it, foreshadowing the schism, and the cracks in this represent cracks in the Tower of Babel, the unity that we all have on this mission into space, and that's falling apart even now as the Russians are no longer playing. Uh, they're no longer playing ball with us. They're doing their own thing. They're going to leave the ISS, and China has their own station, and there are talks for a communist moon base, probably made out of Astrocrete. So again, to reiterate, we're talking about Tom Cruise, his upcoming birthday on the eve of July 4th, 7/3. And again, this is some more symbolism that ties into this. 7/3, the number, is an ambergram for EL. Like flip it upside down. EL. So you have a connection here between EL, L, and 73 or 113, 1 minute 13 seconds. Also in Vanilla Sky, Tom Cruise's character was sold LE, or Life Extension. That was the company that sold him Resurrection. Before he could be resurrected, he had to be elevated. He had to go up an elevator, which was a big skyscraper, a big obelisk. And in order to reincarnate and re-enter the world, he had to fall from the tower. Jack Parsons, early JPL rocket scientist who was partnered with L. Ron Hubbard, Scientology founder, another Tom Cruise connection. L. Ron Hubbard, Jack Parsons, and Scarlet Witch. If you've seen the recent Doctor Strange, the Scarlet Witch is a reference to the Scarlet Woman, Marjorie Cameron, who was hooking up with L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons, trying to incarnate the Antichrist there at Ground Zero, JPL. My point is, this is the very beginning, the genesis of our modern space religion. Jack Parsons had a mysterious explosion. He blew up in his laboratory at 37. The Challenger blows up 1 minute 13 seconds again, or more specifically 113.191. So 191 it contains a 9/11, kind of like Tominoid pointed out. Top Gun 2 is 1 hour 31 minutes, 131. So you can see how they use these same numbers and they kind of scramble them, ambigram, anagram, but it's all there. Again, the One World Trade Tower, almost called Phoenix, opened on 113, 13 years after the burning immolation of the 33-year-old twins. So here's what I'm suggesting. The next 9/11 will be another Challenger explosion level tragedy involving the Russians, but this time it's the ISS. Now, I'm not sure if Tom Cruise will be in it at the time, but there's a few things here that make me think we will find out soon. So, at the first post 9/11 Oscars, Tom Cruise spoke about his love of, quote, magic, talking about movie magic. And he gave a shout out to Stanley Kubrick. Why would you give a shout out to Stanley Kubrick after 9/11? And if you want me to go through it, I will go through it here, some parts of it, but there is a lot of predictive programming for 9/11 in Kubrick's films. Not just The Shining, but most of his films. But here's a snapshot Tom Cruise at the post 9/11 Oscars. I knew right then and there I wanted to be an astronaut, he said after watching Space Odyssey. Now, again, Space Odyssey has an interesting connection here that I'll get to in a moment with Space Oddity and David Bowie, which I'll point out here in a minute why that ties in. But let me show you this here. This is a still shot from 2001: A Space Odyssey. What do you see? Twin towers? Twin cylinders. A plane flying into twin cylinders. So this is very reminiscent again of Flight 175 flying towards the twin planes. It's noteworthy that Jeff Bezos launched on July 20th, 2021, the anniversary of the first moonwalk, and launched at 9:11 a.m. So that's a connection between Apollo 11 and 9/11. Again, anniversary of Apollo 11 launching at 9/11. And I made a point a moment ago to point out Moonfall has the nuking the moon scenario. So let's connect those two things. Project A119, study of lunar research flights, was a top secret plan developed in 1958 to detonate a nuclear bomb on the moon to answer some of the mysteries of planetary astronomy and also to psych out the Russians. Why the Air Force almost blasted the moon with an H-bomb. Project A119. So here, Apollo 11 and 911 are connected in the launch that Bezos made. What's more, 9 days prior, Richard Branson launched into space on 7/11. Now here's the significance. Branson flies in a space plane. So there you have your space plane. His space plane launched on 7/11/21, which was 42 years to the day that the space station Skylab fell down to Earth. So what are the odds? 42 years to the day, Skylab falls, Richard Branson launches. Now he's carried up there by the WK-2. Here's another 2 for you, another twin. It's called the White Knight 2, the WK-2, twin jets with a shared wing that launched the plane up high enough to go into space. So in this context, you can see the correlations here, and you can compare the Kubrick's film to the flight of 175 heading towards the South Tower. So the connection here goes even deeper because, again, Kubrick, Apollo 11, Neil Armstrong, Yuri Gagarin, Tom Cruise reprising the role of Yuri Gagarin. He's integrated into the bigger space story, but it gets deeper. So Tom Cruise's connection to the New Age, the coming Christ or Antichrist psyop, what have you, he's connected to Stanley Kubrick. The Jack Parsons, L. Ron Hubbard connection. Marjorie Cameron, the space program. This is what there's some dots here to connect as we delve deeper, but here's one. In the movie, Jennifer Connelly's in a bar and a David Bowie song plays. I believe it was Let's Dance. But why would they have David Bowie when Jennifer Connelly shows up? Well, it's because they famously had the movie together, Labyrinth. But what's more, David Bowie being invoked here and emphasized by Connelly, I would say, he's brought up there on purpose because it's as Tom Cruise walks in, because David Bowie is space oddity. And again, when talking about the space program, you can't really separate Kubrick and this vision from Space Odyssey with Space Oddity, this parallel story. David Bowie, of course, is the Starman. Starman is the savior, the man who fell to Earth, this space-born savior, kind of like Superman. But the song Space Oddity, which was actually played during Apollo 11 on the BBC, it's the one that says ground control to Major Tom, and Major Tom dies in space. And I posited in my book Metascript Decoded that ground control to Major Tom might actually reference Tom Cruise's last flight, this ISS trip. And so Space Oddity is another Kubrick connection, space program, Major Tom. So another clue there, I would say. Again, look at this. Top Gun Maverick lights the fires with $33 million through 2 days at the international box office. If you notice the picture of him, there's a sun at his back. We were doing some symbol analysis of a lot of his pictures and representations in all his different movies. It's always crosses, always hanging, always solar stuff. All right, let me catch up on comments. Benton G says timing is everything. Yes, exactly. Travis Cloud says Fepe is my hero. Joined here by Jungle Jim. That SOB, thanks for joining. Space quakes causing cracks in the ISS foundation, says Calamento. Well, the term crack is extremely significant. It has been, and I think it's the crack from the Kraken, or it's perhaps the schism, some kind of civil war thing. Tomanoid 2 says, untitled Tom Cruise SpaceX project. Tom Cruise and director Doug Liman travel far beyond Earth to film the first ever Hollywood motion picture in space. Exactly. You can see the full picture here. First ever Hollywood full. Okay, that's the thing. He lost the space race to the Russians, is the challenge. Now, the curve joke was as Tom Cruise's flight hits Mach 10, he's on his way up to Mach 10, hits 7.3, and then they shut off the radar so that the commander or the general can't pull the plug on the operation. And he says, where is he? Oh, he must have gone over the Earth's curvature. And everybody laughs. And then someone says, yeah, we call it ballage. And everybody laughs again. Now, the movie did not end with them being grounded. The movie ended with, well, I don't want to go too deep into spoilers, but let's see what else I've missed here. The main role, though, the main role that Tom Cruise plays is this returning, the second coming hero type savior character. He's the second coming of Yuri Gagarin, another space hero, who, by the way, died a mysterious, fiery death. Common theme. Yeah, in the movie he had to go beyond Mach 10, which is, what, 7,000 miles per hour or something like that. Insane. And I think that it was all symbolic anyway. Very, very symbolic stuff. I don't think any of it's all that necessarily realistic, but all right, so let us continue. That was an article I put out called Top Gun 2, Tom Cruise, Second Coming, Sun God Symbolism, and the Next 9/11. Put a link in the chat if you want to read it for yourself. Again, Rooster, Phoenix, Hanged Man, Twin Cross. The only one I haven't decoded is the guy named Bob. And the name Bob in flames on his helmet. Not sure what that means. But if you watch the movie, you'll see everything I wrote down here or posted here. It's pretty much the story. And they act it out. They act out the altruism and the self-sacrificing in the aerial battles. Okay, let's continue. So, TV tropes. This is from tvtropes.org. After testing and this just, I'm pointing this out because I watched the movie, I see Tom Cruise with a space helmet, and I see him land in the village, and I'm like, this is Yuri Gagarin all over again. This is from Again, tvtropes.org. After testing the Dark Star above Mach 10 and parachuting out due to critical failure at such a speed, Maverick enters a road restaurant still in his flight suit. After drinking a glass of water, he asks where he is, and a little boy who is eating cereals answers him, "On Earth," believing him to be an alien. This is even funnier if you know that this actually happened to Yuri Gagarin after his first spaceflight. He was mistaken for an alien by villagers when he asked for a telephone while wearing his flight suit and a trailing parachute. So this is a merging of crews and the first man who went into space. Very, very significant. Now, a little side note here. The name Gagarin, I don't know if it means anything. That Lady Gaga, Gaga, was featured prominently on the soundtrack. Another thing, I think this guy was canceled because of Ukraine. Yuri Gagarin is the latest Russian to get canceled. Yep, for the most part. They removed his name from a Space Foundation fundraiser because he was Russian. Pretty pathetic. But again, if you watch the movie, you'll note that Cruise looks like this guy does when he's going at that high rate of speed in a space helmet. And when he goes into that diner, it looks like a diner out of the early 20th century. So this was an intentional connection made to a sacrificial hero, cosmonaut. A lot of 44s in the news right now. Significance, the 4 is the cross. 4 seasons, it's a solar symbol. And again, 4-4 would therefore be a double cross, twin cross, as we've been saying. So Elon Musk claims Twitter is in a material breach of a $44 billion deal, since they won't tell him how many fake accounts there are. I'm just saying it's up there, 44. A few other instances of it. It's very significant that Kanye West is 44, and so is the guy that plays the man who fell to Earth. 44 is I guess that put him back to 1977 when he was born. This again a reference to a few things, but I don't want to get too sidetracked. Here's another 44 for you. 44% of Republicans believe the shootings are preventable. A lot of trending. 44% was trending today. All right, I have a few other things to go through. Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, this is such a weird time to be an 18-year-old with a machine gun. Kyle Rittenhouse is out shooting weapons and saying, "Come and take him, Joe." I don't know if that's considered to be a threat, but anybody who thinks that Kyle Rittenhouse is some kind of hero, his Instagram account was Kyle Rittenhouse 33, if you didn't know. But here's Kyle Rittenhouse with some kind of an AR assault rifle. I know it's not what it really stands for. Just pointing this out, though, there's a few reasons why this is necessary. Anybody who's still idolizing Kyle Rittenhouse, one, Gage Grosskreutz is a crisis actor. But you got to see what he actually said here. It's kind of sad. Kyle Rittenhouse is kind of offended by people who call him a crisis actor. He said, "I'm not a crisis actor. And for people to say I'm a crisis actor, they're trying to take away my voice. And to be frank, it's disturbing." So, my contention is that he is indeed a crisis actor, and even worse, he's an agent provocateur. And I don't know how people think this is an authentic, real thing. This whole, you know how much money Trump gave to Kenosha? After Kenosha, Donald Trump shows up, Mr. Moneybags there, with $42 million. Trump promises $42 million to support public safety in Wisconsin. President Trump heads to Kenosha with $42 million. Too much numerology, too many patterns here for this to be real. But I believe that Kyle Rittenhouse is actually based on Chris Kyle. Chris Kyle was a United States Navy SEAL sniper who died in 2013. Now, if you read his story, this guy would be canceled today. It's totally unbelievable. And I think someone like this could only exist in a pre-social media era. So if you didn't know, he's a hero because he had 150 plus confirmed kills. So he murdered a bunch of people, a mass murderer, but he did it for America. He's a hero. He's also a hero because, listen to this. After Hurricane Katrina, he heard that people were stealing from, I guess, what, Walmarts or something? People are stealing TVs, which is really bad. So it says, during Hurricane Katrina, after hearing about the civilian strife, he and another man drove to New Orleans to stop the looters. With sniper rifles, again, drove somewhere else to stop looters. Kyle drove to New Orleans to stop looters. With sniper rifles, they traveled to New Orleans, positioned at a vantage point on top of the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. There, Kyle started shooting armed residents and looters, whom they identified as making trouble. Some reports state that Kyle shot 30. Kyle also relates a story about how he was robbed at a gas station in 2009, southwest of Dallas. He picked up a gun and shot both robbers dead. There are no records of anyone being killed at the medical examiner's office, though. He also claimed that he killed 320 apart from his service in Iraq. So this guy was a pretty significant hero. There's a statue of him in Odessa. But you're supposed to believe that he murdered a bunch of looters. Imagine if in 2020, and look, he's wearing the Punisher logo, which is a trademark infringement. All the nonners do it. Now imagine if in 2020, Kyle ran out there, maybe to Seattle, and started shooting Antifas, or shooting people looting things. How would that have gone down? But somehow it was permissible in New Orleans after Katrina. I think it's a fake story. But it shows you how they use fake news to manufacture heroes, and this one worked for a time. Now they have Kyle Rittenhouse. AK All Day 2323 says things only a crisis actor would say. Yeah, only crisis actors would say that. I'm not a crisis actor trying to take his voice away. Right. Alright, let's move on here. There's some video, but it's blocked. Somebody was trying to assert that Kyle Rittenhouse is actually Chadwick Boseman in some kind of deep fake outfit. Fake skin and everything. I mean, it's believable. He looks small and pudgy, but he's actually big enough to maybe fit the Black Panther inside. There's a cursory resemblance. It's within the realm of possibility, but I'm going to have to say no. Truth Loop says in the new #1 movie called The Interceptor on Netflix, they talk about destroying 16 cities in the U.S., and Seattle is one of them. Travis Cloud says after Katrina, he shot peaceful protesters, looters. Oh, yeah, they're peaceful. Mother Goosekeeper says Donald Trump's initials are a DT. Stands for 420. Oh, I see. D is 4, T is 20. The birthday of Hitler. I see that. Got an email from Elisa's Echo Charlie Galata Tower. Says Trump Tower, Chicago, the walking man set on fire while sleeping. Like Darth Vader burned to a crisp scene prominent in the latest episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi this week. I'll take a look. Yuri Gagarin, first man in space, sparked conspiracy theory. I'm going to do some more work. Well, we'll be doing some more research into this character. Very significant. Before we go too much further, though, I want to catch up on everyone's comments. And then go through some of the headlines as well. Here's an interesting one. I talked about the tarot cards, how they're actually based on, well, the astrotheological cult that runs the world, but so are the regular playing cards. 52 cards, 52 weeks, 4 seasons, 4 suits. Again, the number 4 associated with this. It's a solar thing. But check this out. It has to do with the game of Russian roulette. No, I'm sorry, regular roulette. Regular roulette. Okay, so there are 37 colored and numbered holes on the sphere, on the wheel, but it says the game has a sinister beginning. Satan is said to have made a deal with Louis Blanc in order to give him the secret of roulette. The pact made Louis go crazy. But it's interesting to know that if you add all the numbers on roulette's wheel, it comes up to 666. And the number 666 isn't really about Satan or the devil, it's a solar number. It's a number associated with the sun and this entire, even Saturn in a way. If you look up the planetary squares, for example, which are part of this Kabbalistic magical system, the magical square of the sun, for example, 6 by 6 grid, it kind of gives you an idea when you look into a lot of this magic, at least magic with a K. It gives you an idea of what they are actually communicating above our heads. That's what they mean when they call it occult. But listen to this. In ancient occult tradition, each planet has been associated with a series of numbers and a particular organization of those numbers into squares that comprise square arrays of numbers in which the sums in each row, column, and diagonal are the same. The numbers associated with the sun are 6, 36, 111, and 666. The sum of all numbers in the magic square of sun. So if you take a grid, and again, these grids are used, you see them in all kinds of movies, and that's why it's important to be symbol literate. You'll find how common these things are. Now, what do they mean? It's based on the occult, quote, science, or this notion of correspondences as above, so below. They believe that they can influence the universe out there in the bigger picture by working with a microcosm and symbolic representations. And so in a way, you could look at your TV or your iPhone screen as something of an altar when it comes to this concept of magic, the law of attraction. And you can look at it all as woo, look at it all as just mumbo jumbo. But when you look at how consistent the stuff is, that's why I point out the tarot cards, the roulette, the precision with which these events are all timed. Going through your comments. Has IPS ever done a tarot show? That'd be a good idea to go through them 0 through 22. Robert Seffer, according to Rusty, said that the ancient texts led to revealing 666 as a holy number. 666, sun worship, all Luciferian Catholic Church. Well, Aleister Crowley dictated the Book of the Law, which is the New Age Bible that they all use. And if you look into it, he was, I think he was high on coke, and he was in Cairo, and he was supposedly channeling Horus. But anyway, he realized he needed to start writing this book, that he was going to get this information channeled to him while he was walking through a museum, and he found the stele under the inventory number 666. And here it is here. And this is the stele, this is the image, the plaque that he saw, which really got him started. And he channeled the Book of the Law, which is where you get Do What Thou Wilt, which Jay-Z wears on his sweatshirt. The Stele of Revealing, located in Cairo. Again, it was marked number 666, and Crowley saw it, took it as some kind of direct communication from some messenger of the God of the New Age. Here we go, and here's an actual picture of it. According to Crowley, his wife Rose had reported a revelation from the god Horus through a messenger Aiwass. They went to the museum, and they saw the stele, and it was cataloged number 666, holding a very special significance in Thelema. And we could do some tarot card decoding here. It would actually be useful. It's actually more useful just to look at Economist covers. Let me show you one. This is something that a good starting point. So Economist magazine 2017. There are so many of them to go through, but this one is probably one of the most blatant. It's called Sharp Power, the new shape of Chinese influence. So when you see influence or Chinese influence and new shape, think novel shape Chinese flu. And the cover has a globe covered in spikes looking like a giant COVID. So again, it says Sharp Power, the new shape of Chinese influence. And this is again 2017. There's another Economist cover worth looking at, very predictive. I think it's called The Weaker Sex. And it has a Q, way before there was Q. And it has a man in a red hat before MAGA hats. The Weaker Sex, no jobs, no family, no prospects, May 30th, 2015. So you have a MAGA in a Q. How does that work? Well, it's because it's the male symbol. But instead of being pointed up, it's pointed down into a Q. And here you have a little MAGA-like character. Again, these are not coincidences. So yeah, if you want to divinate, you can look at tarot cards, but those are centuries old. I would say look at some more contemporary sources. Rusty says, are we seeing magic? Yeah, I would say so. And the thing is, there's this group magic thing at work here. I don't think you can be a passive participant. And when we say magic, what are we really talking about? I think it has something to do with the imagination and images and magnetism, or the attraction to imagined things that has some kind of influence on probability manipulation. That not necessarily that your thoughts create reality, but to some extent they do, depending on the potency and power of these thoughts and visualizations. And I think that's what is being hijacked with this hypermediation. I think they're hijacking the collective imagination and then directing us like matrix batteries to manifest a world of their own liking. I think that's what we're seeing. If the theory of magic is more than just theory, if it is in fact what it appears to be, I mean, that's what it is in practice. They're using attention, concentration on microcosmic or symbolic representations of bigger changes. And so it's clear to me just by the symbolism, the timing, and the precision of it all that that's what we're looking at. All right, let's see. Let's go ahead and continue going through some notes. And I'm on Twitter at Real Tim Osman. Here, let me play a clip here. Here's Kyle Rittenhouse. Come and take him, Joe. He's at a gun range on 6/6/2022. All right, Twitter's not cooperating right now. Oh, there we go. I think it's a 50 cal. And I'm not against guns. I'm not against gun ownership. I just think it's kind of curious that we have two school shootings. Both shooters have been compared to Kyle because they're, 18. Maybe it's a lack of adult supervision. And here he is, kind of just brandishing a large weapon, baiting CGI Joe. And we are, 4 days away from March for Our Lives. So March for Our Lives is about to hit the streets. David Hogg's about to hit the streets, and his antithesis, his nemesis is here, flaunting his Second Amendment like it's going out of style. Again, here is Chris Kyle Part 2, Kyle Rittenhouse, who has the exact same birthday as Greta Thunberg, firing a 50 cal. Alright, it looks like it's not going to play, but you know what it looks like. Nebulous07 says Florida is the breakaway civilization. Well, in 6/11, it's possible that Seattle may actually break away, break off the mainland. We shall see. All right, so we've been talking about sun worship, ball worship, Top Gun 2, Twin Towers, Twin Guns, the coming 9/11. all of the symbolism encoded into that movie. The more significant, greater role of twin cross Tom Cruise on the world stage, the amalgamation of Tom Cruise onto the character of Yuri Gagarin for this generation, possibly bringing that character back, the role of Kubrick in scripting our modern worldview, and his connection to Tom Cruise is something I've also been looking very closely at. Before we go too much further, let me go and go to this. I'm taking all of my BitChute videos and putting them on Rockfin. So if you're not on Rockfin, it's infinite plane radio. And a number of the videos are just things that got scrubbed from YouTube because our channels get pulled, but videos that are worth keeping around. So here's one. This is the space station's shadow, which shouldn't be there. It's from the ESA's footage, and when I say it shouldn't be there, it's 200 miles above the surface of the Earth, the size of a football field. So the idea that it would have a shadow is very, very problematic. And not only does it have a shadow, and I'm pointing at it with a cursor, but it's a dark shadow. Okay, I brought it up on the screen. Okay, in the stream public now. Basically, what you're looking at, well, it's supposed to be a live or almost live feed from the space station of your home ball. So, on the bottom, now we're looking at the arm, and that's where it got vaxxed. But anyway, I have many, many examples here of there being a shadow where there shouldn't be, among other problems. And I did some research on this, and all these videos that were on BitChute are being put onto Rockfin, so don't miss it. Infinite Plane Radio, I'll put a link below. Let's see what else we have here. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Her job is to say something terrible every day, so we do all her viral marketing for her. Marjorie Taylor Greene has mastered the art of attracting and keeping attention. You could say the same about all the media. Russia readies terrifying Satan II missile as he sends UK a nuke warning. Alex Jones's lawyers want off the Sandy Hook case. Yep, and he's probably not going to have time to get new ones. Vladimir Putin's chilling warning to the West as he prepares to test Satan. Scottish Daily Express. Mike Flynn, crank felon, warns that vaccines will turn us into zombies. Yeah, Mike Flynn actually says that the Chinese are going to launch EMPs, and anybody who's vaxxed will have their heads explode, literally. We talked about Tiananmen Square a couple days ago, 33rd anniversary. A lot of the Mandela affected believe they remember a tank running over somebody that never happened. The ones who remember it are like, yeah, I remember it happened. Really? When you were 5? Was it even on TV? Rival climate crazies battle to see who can vandalize the most SUVs. Yeah, the climate crazies, the end is near. That's what they're literally saying. It is a doomsday cult that we've been born into. No question about it now. Nothing new about that. We have Extinction Rebellion and other groups doing die-ins, which is kind of like, you know how they fake school shootings to make you want to give up your guns? Yeah, they fake climate change deaths. Although they can't, there's really no way they can actually do it, so they just simulate it. It's pretty dumb. 10/28 is Bill Faime's birthday, and here's a climate change activist. We have 10/28 days left. So what does that 10/28 mean? Are the goo bloods going to die? I was wondering. But anyway, oh, something else too. What do you all prefer? Bill Faime or Baffa-Gates? Bill Faime or Baffa-Gates? Okay, I'm going through your comments one last time here. Okay, let's see here. Yes. Kelman just said the feed is making me cry, getting a heavy overview effect. Yeah, the astronauts claim that when you get this high up and you see the Earth as a ball in space, suspended, fragile, that you begin to see the world as one. No longer do you see politics, you don't see political divisions, you don't see nations, you just see one. It's called the overview effect. It's like a spiritual awakening. The problem with that is the space station's only a couple hundred miles above a ball 25,000 miles in circumference. You're not high enough to see it as a ball. It's like staring at a big wall of land. So you can't actually get the overview effect. You're not high enough. Like I'm calling BS on it. It's like you did not see the face of God. Liars. But that's what it means. And there's this thing, I think it's called Space Buzz, is a group where they're actually trying to give children the overview effect by using virtual reality. So this is, to me, this is almost tantamount to, what is it, space grooming? Listen to this, it's pretty bad. In 2018, the Space Buzz project was created so children around the world could get to experience the overview effect. Space Buzz aims to give children effect using virtual reality so they can have the same insights astronauts have when they see the planet from space. It involves an isolation tank, a half ton of Epsom salts, and a waterproof VR headset. This is exactly like the character 11 in Stranger Things. She's in an isolation tank. I'm pretty sure it's Epsom salt, VR headset, long hours of isolation. But this will give the children the quote overview effect, which will get them to vote Democrat and believe in global warming. But they got to do it virtually. Why? Why virtually? Oh, that's right, because they can't do it for real. Nice brainwashing. It's like a baptism. This is like the NWO baptism. Everything from the old religions, they're reinventing for the new one. So you can see God, the face of God, the angry God, and if we don't stop polluting, he's going to flood us or send out the devil again, COVID. Anyway, it's called Space Buzz because, yes, according to astronauts, there's a cognitive shift in awareness from going high up into space. These are your high priests, elevated priesthood. They have seen the heavens. Take their word for it. Evil Coyote says Bilfame. Lean says Bilfame. Rusty says Baffagates. Yep, they reinvented baptism. Alright, speaking of baptism, I thought I saw something else about this today. Some root word. See, I remember someone pointed out to me, I think it was Mr. Most Woke. He said, if you take William Cooper's book, Behold a Pale Horse, B-A-P-H, and then you look at the origin of the name Baphomet, and some have suggested that it refers to baptism into wisdom. And you can kind of make that connection there. So here's one. Simulation Reality says, go to timestamp 1415. It's a description of Baphomet, Greek for absorption of knowledge. Comes from the Knights Templar. So there may be something to it. The symbol of Baphomet is just a symbol when you really get down to it. It's not really an actual goat god. That's a different deity. That would be Pan. But the Baphomet is a combination of man, angel, and beast, reptile. It's a combination of pretty much everything, but it's more of a hieroglyph to be interpreted. Now, interestingly though, it was created by Eliphas Levi, who Aleister Crowley is said to have been a reincarnated Eliphas Levi. If you believe in that stuff, I tend not to. Now again, we're working on a documentary on the Mandela effect. If anybody wants to take part, just join in the Discord server. It's going to be in full edit mode by the beginning of July. It's going to be released on July the 18th. We already have it pretty much outlined. The book that I wrote, it's more of a pamphlet according to the Mandela effect, as though they know the difference. And do these Mandela affected actually read the books they comment on? They say the Bible changed. I don't believe that they've actually. Stavely even admitted he never watched Mars rover, or Moonraker, excuse me. He never watched Moonraker. So how would he know whether or not the character Dolly had braces? All right, let's see. Gubby says tops equals blast in Swedish. Okay, the tops, again, the tops was the location of a shooting. And the beginning of Stranger Things has the character playing with tops. I'm going to put a link in the chat if you want to join the newsletter. That way you can get live stream notifications if you're not already getting text alerts. Also, you'll get a link if you want to join our Discord server. It's $2 a month, cutting edge research, really the most cutting edge media analysis out there. We don't start off with a premise that any of these psyops are anything but, and we've been proven right 100% of the time. We're often vindicated. So you can hang out, you can simply lurk, you can post, you can meme, you can even steal the memes. Memes are free. So go to infiniteplainsociety.com, click the link below. We'll be live again. And also, by the way, on the tomorrow morning, most likely, but mark your calendar for 6/9. JL26 and I are going to be speaking again. And if you haven't watched it, it'll be in the replays here tonight. And I recommend it because you may have some questions about 611 that he's already answered. And then, of course, come up with some new questions. If you have anything else you want to ask him, just run it by me and I'll bring it up to him on the 9th. And, of course, the 10th is something of a holiday now. 6/11 Eve. All right, let me see here. Going through comments. Second Opinion says, perhaps because the trailer had braces regarding Dolly's teeth. Well, we're doing a deep dive into every single one of these, and I find every Mandela effect has an explanation. I think it's been categorically debunked, but the effect itself is real. There is an effect. It's just the question of, is it what they say it is? Or is that an explanation that is arrived at through some kind of logical fallacy or misunderstanding, which is my contention. Anyway, this has been great as usual. I appreciate everybody hanging out and commenting. This is pretty much as I've been describing it, it's a multi-million piece puzzle, and each of us are putting our pieces on this thing. And in the last few years, we have put together quite a bit. The term metascript is meant to encompass our perspective here, this post-world stage perspective, which incorporates all of the entertainment, all of the media, all of the news, all of the fake history as one monolithic story, which it is. And that's what the monolith represents in Kubrick's work, and that's what the cell phone or the smartphone represents, the monolithic one world view, which right now it might seem like it's not quite there yet, but they're getting very close. 2020 was a huge leap forward, getting everybody on the same sheet. That's why you're going to notice they're going to ramp up on the censorship of climate change non-belief, because that's going to be the pretext, I believe, for most of the changes to come. COVID-19 was really just here to fast track Agenda 2030. I mean, I'll never forget how after the lockdown started, NASA was presenting us with satellite imagery of Beijing saying, hey, look, pollution's gone. Seems like more lives will be saved by cleaning the air than will have been lost to the virus. Kind of setting the premise that maybe it'd be a good idea to have an annual virus. Good for the earth and good for everybody. All right, this is Chief Crow and the Flat Earthworms, COVID 1984. Right after this, it's going back into the 24/7.
COVID 1984. seat. Shut up, shut the door. Government media bent you over like a whore. COVID-19 84, COVID-19 84, COVID-19 84, COVID-19 84. 33 puzzle, face mask muzzle. I'm going to my grandma's house. Shut in, shut up, cover your mouth.